Most people think being in a wheelchair is a simple trade. You sit more, stand less, and that's basically the whole story. That's the picture that lives in their heads. Clean, obvious, finished. But Jason's day doesn't start when he rolls into view. It starts before anyone could possibly notice, before daylight fully reaches the room, before anyone is ready to understand. His morning begins with negotiation. Getting up isn't a single motion of legs and balance the way it is for someone standing. For Jason, it's a plan. First, he's checking what hurts today. What part of his body feels hot, tight, or ready to lock. He's thinking about what moved weirdly overnight, what stayed stiff, what might loosen with time, and what might not. Then there's the smaller, practical question. Will his hands cooperate enough to grip what he needs? Some mornings he already knows within seconds that it's going to be rough. Other mornings his body surprises him. Either way, the day starts bargaining with muscles and joints long before his feet ever touch the floor. Then comes the step almost nobody pictures, the transfer. A transfer is the skill of moving from one position to another, bed to chair to car, chair to toilet, without falling, without hurting yourself, and without having the whole day rearranged. It's not glamorous. It's angles. It's grip strength. It's weight placed in the right spot at the right moment. Get the angle wrong, and the wrong thing happens fast. Get the grip wrong, and hands slip. Put too much weight somewhere it doesn't belong, and suddenly you're on the floor. Jason has been on the floor more than once, and when he is alone and he goes down, everything changes in about 2 seconds. It's no longer about getting dressed or brushing teeth in a routine line. It becomes a new problem, how to get back up without making the injury worse than it already is. That's the part nobody sees. Not the chair itself, not the movement people focus on. It's the war happening quietly behind getting into the chair. Once he's in it, the house starts revealing its personality. Every doorway becomes a measurement. Doorways are never just doorways anymore. They're tight spaces with consequences. Counters are never just counters. They're heights that were built for someone standing and leave Jason with a reach that's just slightly out of comfort. Cabinets become puzzles. Bathrooms turn routine tasks, washing, getting ready, into obstacle courses. In a standing world, bathroom break is 5 minutes. In Jason's world, the same break might stretch into 15, not because he's slow in his mind, but because the physical mechanics take time, attention, and careful control. There's a strange way familiarity works. People ask if it gets easier. Jason doesn't pretend the question isn't understandable, but the answer is nuanced. It gets more familiar. Familiar isn't the same as easier. He knows where the tight spots are now. He knows which doorway requires an extra 3 seconds of lining up. He knows the places where he can cut closer and the places where he needs more space. But knowing the obstacle course by heart doesn't shrink the obstacles. It just helps Jason survive them with fewer surprises. What wears him down isn't only the chair. The chair is just a tool. The real fatigue comes from thinking. Every task a standing person does on autopilot, grab this, reach there, turn, step, balance, requires Jason's full attention first. Can he reach it without leaning too far? Does he need help, or does help take longer than trying himself? If he tries himself, is the risk worth the outcome? And if he decides to request help, who will be available, how quickly, and with what assumptions? Multiply that constant decision-making across a whole day, and by late afternoon, Jason's brain is often as tired as his body, sometimes more. It's not exhaustion from effort alone. It's exhaustion from effort plus calculation plus restraint plus awareness. His mind works in the background of everything, even when nothing dramatic is happening. Health makes the math even harder. Betchets doesn't wait for convenient timing. On a bad flare day, joints can feel like they're on fire before he's done anything at all. Then the day still has to happen. Transfers, tight spaces, controlled movements. Add in the fact that Jason has had 3 strokes. Some days his body responds as expected. Other days, even with the same setup, the signals don't arrive when he needs them. People may see the chair and assume they're seeing most of what matters. They're not. They're seeing maybe 10% of the real picture. There's also a loneliness that isn't obvious from the outside.
95% of Jason's day happens inside this chair, but almost none of it happens in a way that anyone can witness. No one watches him figure out a transfer at 6 in the morning. No one is there when a doorway almost catches him at noon.
Most of his work is problem-solving that happens alone, quietly, in a house, while the world goes on without tracking it, because why would it? It isn't dramatic from the outside. It's just Tuesday.
Still, Jason is careful about how people interpret him. This isn't self-pity. He still gets up every day and does it again. He still lifts weights in his basement because he refuses to let this take more from him than it already has. He can stand for short stretches. He can crawl if he needs to.
He's not someone who gave up and disappeared into the corner of life. He's someone who calculates the morning and then shows up anyway. But heavy things deserve honest names. The cost is real, and it's not always the kind of thing people expect. It's not always sad in a movie way. It's simply heavy. In the body, in the mind, in the time it takes to live inside a set of physical limits that don't turn off when the day ends. One of the most tiring parts is also one of the least physical: explaining himself. Explaining isn't one conversation, it's repetition. A stranger asks for help grabbing something, and Jason has to explain again that he doesn't need the grab, he's got it. Then he has to actually prove it while that person hovers and watches like a supervisor. A wider parking spot is needed, and he has to justify why the regular space doesn't work the way people think it should. A quick errand takes much longer, and Jason has to explain why, even when he can feel the impatience in the air. Each small moment might feel manageable alone. But they stack. That's the key people miss. Small interruptions to autonomy, small adjustments to other people's assumptions, small moments of being observed, added up across hours, they become their own kind of fatigue. By sunset, it isn't just joints aching, it's the social weight of constantly managing other people's reactions. People say things like, "You're so strong," or "I don't know how you do it." Jason understands why people say it. Encouragement is a kind of caring, and it usually comes from a place of respect. But it can land strangely because he isn't doing anything heroic besides living. Nobody chooses this terrain. You don't wake up one day and say, "Great, I'd like this challenge." You wake up and the terrain is there, and you either learn to move through it or you get swallowed by it. Jason learned it. That isn't a superpower. It's survival, less impressive up close than it looks from a distance. If someone really wants to know what a day costs, the errand tells the truth. For most people, an errand is predictable. Drive, park, walk in, grab the item, walk out. For Jason, the process begins before the store even appears. Is there accessible parking that isn't blocked by a cart return? Are the ramps usable? Is the door heavy? And if it is, can Jason time the opening correctly without rushing? Are the aisles wide enough for him to pass without knocking things off shelves? He's not just moving slowly, he's moving carefully through space that wasn't designed for him. He's felt store employees stare like they're looking at a simple delay. From their perspective, Jason is just taking too long. From his perspective, every turn is a calculation: where his chair fits, how his body angle needs to adjust, whether his grip is steady enough to make the next movement without panic. And then there's the exhaustion that comes from being watched. It can be uncomfortable, even when no one is being cruel. People stare, sometimes out of curiosity, sometimes out of habit, sometimes out of awkwardness. Kids ask questions quietly, and their parents answer in whispers that don't feel any different to Jason than the loud stares. Adults either overcorrect by being aggressively helpful with things Jason didn't ask for, or they avoid eye contact completely as if the wheelchair is contagious. Either response keeps Jason aware of the fact that he's being seen, observed, judged, processed. That awareness doesn't disappear because someone intended no harm. Awareness is exhausting, period. Evenings bring a different kind of strain. By the time the sun goes down, hands have usually had enough. Betchitz doesn't care what time it is. It flares when it flares, and some nights just holding a fork through dinner becomes a negotiation. Jason doesn't always win gracefully. There are nights he drops things, nights he spills, nights where frustration rises fast, and he needs a minute. Not to perform strength, not to justify anything,
but simply to breathe, to reset, and to try again with steady hands. None of that is visible to anyone watching a video of his day. It happens at his kitchen table, alone, long after the camera would have stopped caring. There's also the matter of vision, because depth perception matters when every movement has risk. Jason has 45% blindness in one eye, which means the way space looks is different for him. Transfers and doorways carry extra risk, because the distance math that many people trust without thinking isn't fully available. Jason compensates. He learns the danger spots in his own home by feel, not just by sight. He gets quieter in some environments, because being cautious is safer than being confident. But compensation doesn't erase risk. It just changes the way risk is managed. When people ask if Jason ever gets a day off, the honest answer is no. There isn't a version of tomorrow where the chair is suddenly gone, where the flare doesn't come, where the depth perception magically repairs itself, where the body behaves like it did before. This isn't a temporary project with an end date. It's ongoing terrain. The only real choice is how Jason meets it each morning. Some mornings are better. Some are worse. That doesn't make him less deserving of respect on the hard ones. It just makes him more honest about the wait. That's what 24 hours in a wheelchair really looks like. Not the highlight reel. Not the simplified story people tell themselves. The truth is a long chain of careful choices, quiet problem solving, and moments stacked together until they feel like more than they used to. The chair is not the hard part. The chair is just where Jason sits. The hard part is everything around it, everything nobody sees happening all day, every day, quietly, with no scoreboard. So when someone in a wheelchair moves a little slower than expected, it helps to remember that what's being seen is only a fraction of what's being carried. Maybe a tenth, maybe less. But the rest is inside the body, inside the mind, inside the work that happens before anyone claps, and after no one looks away, because the day keeps going, and it keeps going for him in a way that most people never have to imagine.